Okay, so let's just dive right in, because something profound, I mean truly profound, has just shifted in the landscape of government secrecy and what we thought we knew about our world. For decades, right, the whole conversation about UFOs was always about the skies, but the real trigger for the biggest policy change we've ever seen, it didn't come from above, it came from the deep. Take a look at this number, 9,000. Since late 2022, that's how many unexplained objects have been reported, not in our skies, but lurking in the waters right off America's coasts. We're not talking over decades, that's 9,000 encounters in just a few short years. And they have a name, USOs, unidentified submersible objects. And these sightings, which are really concentrated off the coasts of California and Florida, they've been verified by the military. You've probably heard about the 2019 incident with the USS Omaha. They tracked this spherical object, watched it just plunge into the ocean, and then, poof, it just vanished. No trace, no wake, no debris, nothing. So this huge surge in activity started to raise a terrifying question that, officials just couldn't ignore anymore. What in the world is going on in our waters? And maybe more importantly, who has the answers? Because it was becoming crystal clear the government didn't have the whole picture, not even close. You had high-ranking officials like Rear Admiral Gallaudet warning for years that the public was not getting the real story. And the reason, they basically alleged, wasn't just that the government was hiding things. It's that the government didn't actually have the answers. Someone else did. And it turns out the biggest secrets weren't locked away in some government vault in the desert. Nope. They were sitting on corporate balance sheets. For almost 80 years, there was this quiet policy allegedly in place. And what this did was create a kind of shadow world. Instead of a public agency like NASA or the military studying this stuff, the material was handed over to private defense contractors. Think about that. They could study and, potentially profit from world-changing technology with absolutely zero public oversight. Those pesky Freedom of Information Act requests, they couldn't touch them. So here it is. This is the central conflict. This is the whole ballgame. It's the belief that technology recovered on behalf of the American people for the public trust was now being treated as private corporate property. And for a very, very long time, there was absolutely nothing anyone could do about it. Until now. In March of 2026, after years of failed attempts and bills that got watered down to nothing, Congress decided the time for asking nicely was over. They decided to take it all back. They passed the 2026 UAP Disclosure Act, and it created this radical new legal concept, a form of eminent domain, but for alien technology. The law's logic is actually pretty simple. If it wasn't made by humans, it automatically belongs to the American people, period. It doesn't matter whose lab it's sitting in. And this thing has teeth. The clawback clause is basically a legislative seizure with some very stark ultimatums for these contractors. This isn't a suggestion. It mandates a full inventory of all non-Earth origin material within 60 days. It demands the immediate surrender of any non-human biologics. And it even threatens to just nullify any patents based on this tech. And, just as important, it continues to protect the scientists on the inside who decide it's time to speak up. This slide just lays it out so perfectly. I mean, look at this. It's a complete reversal of power. Asset ownership goes from private corporate property to federal eminent domain. Oversight moves from these super secret internal programs to an actual review board and Congress. And public access, it goes from zero, absolutely nothing, to a mandated presumption of disclosure. It's a complete 180. Now, an act this monumental doesn't just change a few laws, right? It sends massive shockwaves through our economy and, honestly, through our collective psyche. The consequences are immediate, and they're far-reaching. The first shockwave, it's economic. Just imagine being a major defense company and having to admit that some of your most advanced, cutting-edge R&D isn't yours. Wall Street is scrambling. Stock valuations are going wild. And there's this huge legal question. With eminent domain, the government has to pay fair market value, but how do you put a price on a captured starship? But the second shockwave, this one is way more personal, and it actually has a clinical name, ontological shock. It's that deep, profound sense of disorientation you feel when your entire framework for reality, everything you thought you knew, is suddenly and fundamentally disrupted.
And this is so key to understand. Psychologists are predicting this whole range of perfectly valid human responses as this new reality starts to sink in. Some people will feel awe and wonder. Others will feel anxiety. Some will just flat out deny it, while a lot of people might just feel exhausted by it all. You have to remember, disclosure isn't just a news event, it's a psychological event.
So why does any of this matter to you? Well, because the government has officially moved this entire topic from the fringe right into the mainstream. What was once ridiculed and laughed at is now a legitimate national security issue and a mental health concern. The Overton window, that's the range of ideas considered acceptable for public discussion, it hasn't just shifted, it's been shattered.
So, where does this completely unprecedented story go from here? The seizure is really just the beginning of the next chapter.
Well, first off, we're not going to see everything all at once. The act sets up a review board, a lot like the one that was created for the JFK assassination records, and their job is to control the flow of information. They're tasked with managing a staggered release, trying to balance public interest with national security. And at the exact same time, you know a massive legal battle is brewing. You can bet that corporate lawyers are preparing to fight this seizure every single step of the way. They'll be arguing about intellectual property rights for technology that, well, technically, they didn't invent. This whole thing could go all the way to the Supreme Court. And this leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought. The dam of secrecy has broken. The debate is no longer about if disclosure is going to happen, but how it's going to happen and how quickly. So the only real question left is, after all this time, are we ready for what comes next?